want to pivot back to Simone Biles a little bit because you did bring up Simone Biles, which is very interesting as a character, right? Obviously, one of the greatest, if not the greatest gymnast ever.
Oh,
incredible talent, just amazing to watch. And a child. She's younger than I'm 26. She's younger than I believe she's younger than I am, right? She's like,
you're younger than us.
She's like
24.
24, 20, like between 21 and 20, whatever. But, a complete child. But I bring up her specific because, this happens a lot with sports, where sports gets blended in with politics a lot, way more than most people want. Now, granted, these things are worth talking about, but most people go to sports just for the sake of watching sports and getting away from whatever the hell is going on in politics. Now, as a podcast host, how do you balance that with what you want to talk about, what your audience might want to talk about, and how difficult it can be to talk about specifically something like Simone Biles when, for mental health even. That's just a whole nother can of worms. You got politics, sports, and healthcare. Fuck me. How do you balance all that?
Well, sometimes we don't get to cover everything that we prepared for because we get caught on topics like that. And we feel like it's more important to put that out and how we feel about it as athletes. And how we also go through it as athletes and, how we can relate to it. And so most of the times that we've talked about Naomi Osaka and Simone Biles, we've dug into it pretty deep just because it's very important to us too. So we want the audience to also get that information out. So sometimes we don't get to all the topics that we prepare because of these situations.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I balance it usually by sticking as much to what's factual as possible. And we do like to share our perspectives on things, but typically the only time we'll discuss something and make it political is if it actually involves politics. Otherwise, sometimes there are topics that we'll delve into that people will see as political, and we don't see it as political. We just see it as part of the story. And in those situations, there's just nothing that we can do about it. So for example, with the Olympics, the subject of mental health came up, a lot. And there are some people who do view that as a political issue. And especially with it being that it was Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, and what was that other athlete's name?
The weightlifter?
Yeah, or the shot put.
I can't remember her name.
I don't remember, but it was 3 Black women that were at the forefront of it.
Yes.
And so a lot of Black women were championing the movement,
Right.
And so I put out an episode. It was a bonus episode that was just me. And it was titled Black Girl Magic and Mental Health. And so there are some people who view just the phrase Black girl magic as political. I don't. So in situations like that, it's just like, oh, you think that's political? I'm like, sorry, this is just me talking about my experience in this country. I'm sorry you think that's political, but because of that, we don't usually end up talking about politics a lot. Every now and then it comes up, especially with like LeBron and like, somebody on Fox News might say something about LeBron and they make
shut
it
up
political.
and dribble.
So then we have to respond to that. But usually that's about as far as it goes.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Because you're a sports podcast. You want to talk sports. You want to talk stats. You want to talk numbers in the game. Then Kyrie Irving is going off doing Kyrie Irving things. So it's like it's topical. It's stuff people want to hear. But I think you're doing it the right way. It's like if it comes up from the perspective of an athlete, I'm telling you my perspective. This is like how I view this personally. And personal is a big word for me in the podcast game because a podcast stands for a personally oriented discussion centered around select topics. Podcast.
Is that really what it stands for?
That's a Will Tarashik original. That's what I came up with.
I like it.
That's awesome.
So like, as long as you keep it personal to you and like, it's don't get too far in the weeds. Cause like your podcast is very much, we're sticking to sports. Kyrie Irving might come up, but I don't want to get lost too far in the weeds. Like stick to the formula, stick to the topic, especially because you cover a lot of sports. Right. It's not just specifically football or basketball. I didn't see much love for the World Series, but that's okay. You can't cover it all.
I did watch part of it. If it makes you feel better, I did watch part of it because my boyfriend likes the Astros, so I did watch.
Well, I'm glad he was disappointed. Fuck the Astros. Them cheaters. And you made it to the end of the clip. I really did find it interesting what Lethal said about it's not political to me. And I was like, ooh, I should have dug in deeper on that. But hey, maybe I'll have her back on Talking with Tarashuk, and we'll talk all about that. If you want to find all the other podcasts, head over to ambiguouspodcastsolutions.com to find all of our podcast partners, including the Bitches Love Sports podcast. You can find more of in the description down below. If you like us, give us that like, share, subscribe. If you like them, give them that like, share, subscribe. And yeah, see you at the next video. Oh yeah, fuck the Astros. You see that, Astros? Yeah, fuck them.